Atlanta, Georgia, October 1970. Muhammad Ali had not fought in 3.5 years. The man standing at the edge of the stage that night was not human. That was the first thing you understood when you saw him. Not a feeling. A fact. Anatoly Kravchenko, known across the underground athletic circuit as the Iron Bear, stood 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 480 pounds. Not soft weight, not carried weight, compressed weight, the kind that former Soviet Greco-Roman wrestling champions accumulate over 2 decades of professional brutality. He had defected to America in 1962 with $14 in his pocket and one marketable skill: the ability to destroy anything smaller than a small car. In America, that skill had made him rich. The challenge was simple, almost elegant in its cruelty. Survive 10 seconds. Not win, not fight back, just survive. Stay on your feet. Don't get thrown out of the ring. 10 seconds. The reward was $75,000 in 1970, enough to buy a house in Atlanta and have money left over. The briefcase sat at the edge of every stage, in every city, visible and locked and always untouched. In 187 attempts across 12 cities, not one challenger had collected. Not one. Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, October 9th, 1970. The Southern Sports and Athletics Exhibition was in its final night, and the crowd of 900 people had not come for the weightlifting demonstrations. They had come for the one thing printed in bold red letters on every poster from Decatur to downtown: the Iron Bear Challenge. The record beneath it read like a casualty report: 187 challengers, 187 defeated. Average survival time, 5.1 seconds. In the 7th row, a man in a dark sport coat sat with his forearms on his knees, reading the program. His eyes found that number, 5.1 seconds, and stayed there. He read it once, he read it twice. His expression did not change. His name was Muhammad Ali. He was 28 years old, 215 pounds, and he had not thrown a professional punch in 3 years, 4 months, and 11 days. The United States government had taken everything: his boxing license, his titles, his prime earning years. Because he had refused military induction in 1967, the Supreme Court had not yet ruled. His freedom was still technically at risk. And 5 days from tonight, he was scheduled to step back into a professional boxing ring for the first time since his exile, facing Jerry Quarry in the same city. He was here tonight because Angelo Dundee had brought him to study the auditorium layout. He was not supposed to do anything except watch. He was watching, carefully. Kravchenko's entrance made the stage tremble. That was not atmosphere. That was physics. 480 pounds of concentrated mass moving across wooden planks vibrated everything in the building: the chairs, the cups, the fillings in people's teeth. The audience fell silent the way animals go silent when something larger enters the territory. Kravchenko didn't pose, didn't flex, didn't speak. He walked to center stage and let gravity do his introduction. His hands hung at his sides like industrial tools. His neck had ceased to exist somewhere between his skull and the mountain range of muscle that connected them. He had a ritual. He walked to the edge of the stage, lifted a standard wooden folding chair with one hand, the way a normal person lifts a paperback, and closed his fist. The wood didn't snap. It compressed, inward, like paper from the inside. The metal legs bent soft as wire. In 4 seconds, a functional chair became a twisted ball, no bigger than a basketball. He dropped it. The thud it made was the thud of something killed. 3 challengers went before the announcer scanned the room for more. A former college linebacker, 245 pounds, lasted 4.3 seconds, feet leaving the ground at 3.1. A Golden Gloves boxer from Savannah lasted 3.8 before tapping out. A judo black belt from Birmingham lasted 6.1 seconds and walked off holding his ribs, staring at the floor. The briefcase remained locked. The announcer's voice had gone slightly flat. "Anyone else? Last call. $75,000. 10 seconds. Anyone?" Silence. Then, "I'll give it a try." The voice came from the 7th row. Calm, amused almost, the way you'd say you'll take the last piece of cornbread at a dinner table. A man stood up. 7th row, left section. Dark sport coat, medium build, not large. Within 15 seconds, all 900 people in the auditorium knew who had just volunteered. Angelo Dundee was on his feet, his face the color of old newspaper. Champ! He grabbed Ali's sleeve. No rounds, no referee, no rules. That man has put 3 people in the hospital this month. Your license just got reinstated. You fight Quarry in 5 days. 5 days? Angelo. Ali's voice was perfectly even. What's a fighter's most valuable weapon? Dundee stared. His punch. No. Ali straightened his jacket. One smooth motion. His ability to make the other man miss. He stepped into the aisle and walked toward the stage without looking back. The crowd parted without being asked. They stood together at center stage under the same light, and the contrast was almost architectural. Kravchenko at 480 pounds cast a shadow that covered most of the stage. Ali at 215 pounds stood inside that shadow and looked directly up at the man who created it. He looked comfortable there. That was the thing nobody in the building expected. He looked comfortable. The announcer completed the formalities. Name, weight, background. Muhammad Ali, 215 pounds. Boxing? A low collective exhale moved through all 900 people simultaneously. The sound of an audience realizing this evening had become something none of them could have predicted. Ali turned to Kravchenko before the formalities finished, his voice light and carrying to the back rows without effort. They call you the Iron Bear. Strong name. I respect that. He tilted his head. I'm going to call you Anatoly, though, because we're about to get very close for a few seconds, and a man deserves to hear his real name. Kravchenko said nothing. He had never spoken during a challenge. Not in 12 cities, not in 190 attempts. Anatoly. Ali glanced at the crushed chair wreckage on the stage floor, then back up. I've been watching you since you walked out. A man who has won every single fight by doing the same thing, the same way, every time. He paused. Perfect silence. That's not strength, Anatoly. That's a habit. He smiled. Wide, warm, unhurried. And habits are something I can work with. Kravchenko's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. But Ali saw it. Dundee, watching from the side of the stage, saw it too. In 30 seconds of conversation, Ali had done something no previous challenger had managed. He had introduced a fracture, not fear, doubt. The smallest possible crack in the wall. The bell rang. Kravchenko exploded forward. Both arms wide, head down, 480 pounds covering the distance between them like a controlled avalanche. This was the moment that had ended 190 men. Every previous challenger had done one of 3 things: frozen, retreated, or attacked. All 3 had failed. Ali moved forward, not backward, not sideways. Forward, and 18 inches to the left, slipping outside the arc of Kravchenko's right arm with a movement so precise that from the 7th row, it appeared Ali had simply ceased to occupy space. Kravchenko's arms closed on empty air. His momentum carried him 2 steps past the spot where Ali had been. For the first time in 191 attempts, the Iron Bear had grabbed nothing. The crowd made a sound that was not a word. Kravchenko turned, found Ali, reset, came forward again. Faster, arms sweeping wider. Ali moved again, same direction. But this time, as Kravchenko's right arm swept past, Ali's left hand touched the inside of the forearm. 2 fingers, barely contact, and guided it 2 inches further than Kravchenko intended. 2 inches. In those 2 inches, Kravchenko's arms closed behind Ali, around empty space. The man who had crushed 191 challengers stood in the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium and embraced the air. Ali was already facing him from behind. There it is, Ali said, not to the crowd, to Kravchenko. Same entry, same arms, same everything, every single time. He walked slowly around to face him. Anatoly, you are the strongest man I have ever stood next to. I mean that. But strength that only knows one direction, that is not strength anymore. That is a wall. He stopped. And I am water. Kravchenko charged a 3rd time. Everything he had, pure, committed, final. Ali stepped inside the charge, inside the radius of the arms where the grab had no leverage, right foot planting between Kravchenko's boots. His right hand rose, open palm, and stopped 1 inch from Kravchenko's sternum. 1 inch of air between Ali's hand and the center of the largest man in the room. Ali held it there. 1 second, 2, 3. Kravchenko did not move, not because he chose stillness, because every instinct in his body understood that the man in front of him had been in complete control from the first bell, and that the hand 1 inch from his chest could have arrived there at any point before now. The auditorium came apart. 900 people on their feet, sound bouncing off walls, the old wooden floor absorbing the stomping until the whole building felt alive. 3 years of exile, 5 days from his return, and Muhammad Ali had stood inside the arms of a 480-pound Soviet wrestling champion and left him motionless with a single open palm. Ali stepped back. He looked at Kravchenko, not triumphant, not mocking. Something quieter. Something that looked from ringside almost like recognition. "You are a great man, Anatoly," he said, "but greatness that cannot change becomes a cage." He extended his hand. Kravchenko looked at it for 2 full seconds. Then he shook it. Angelo Dundee found Ali at the bottom of the stage steps. He looked like a man who had watched someone walk across a highway and arrive safely on the other side. No prepared words, no time to prepare words. Ali spoke first. "You know what I just figured out, Angelo?" Dundee waited. "I just found out how to fight George Foreman." 4 years later, in Kinshasa, Zaire, before 60,000 people, Muhammad Ali would stand against George Foreman, undefeated, 220 pounds, the most devastating heavyweight of his generation, and spend 8 rounds against the ropes, letting Foreman's avalanche exhaust itself against a man who already understood the lesson. Water doesn't fight walls. Water outlasts them. Round 8, Foreman was empty. Ali stepped off the ropes and ended it in 30 seconds. The world called the strategy rope-a-dope. The world assumed Ali invented it in Zaire. He didn't. He found it in Atlanta in 1970 on a stage in front of 900 people against a man who had never once been made to miss. The briefcase with the $75,000 sat untouched at the edge of the stage. Ali never asked for it. He came because a problem existed that 191 men had failed to solve. The answer was not more strength, not greater courage. It was a different question. Every challenger had asked, "How do I survive this?" Ali asked, "How does it work?" And once you understand how something works, down to the habit, down to the single inch between contact and consequence, you no longer need to survive it. You simply are not where it lands. The Iron Bear retired 2 years later. He opened a gymnasium in Cleveland and spent the next 3 decades teaching young wrestlers the one lesson Muhammad Ali had given him for free. The most dangerous opponent is not the strongest one. It is the one who is never where you expect him to be. He kept one photograph on the wall until the day he died, a blurry image from the crowd. Ali's open palm, 1 inch from his chest. Both men frozen in that instant, written beneath it in Kravchenko's own hand. "The night I learned what a wall cannot do to water." You've been in that ring before, not with a 480-pound giant, but with something that felt just as immovable, the moment everyone thought you were finished. What did you do? Drop it in the comments. Someone reading this today needs to hear exactly that.